Greetings, my fellow sovereign thinkers, L3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mango, South Florida. And today's date is Wednesday, May 1st, 2019. So let us begin. Oh, hey folks, thank you for tuning in. Yes, it's May Day, International Workers' Day. You know, they say May Day started by the Illuminati in Bavaria. Interesting little mystery there. And one thing about International Workers' Day is some of the folks out there said, oh, people have a right to get a job. So you know what? I say you have to learn to get the skills to get the job. They want everything handed to them with that mindset. It doesn't work that way. And I don't care what philosopher that was owned by the Rothschilds told you in his unmeritable books. I say that in good faith. Yes, just to let you folks know, a little bit of a crowd in here on a Wednesday night. And I am at historic Downtowner, located at 10 South New River Drive, East Fort Lauderdale, right along the heart of downtown Fort Lauderdale, and then within the New River. So it's pretty cool. And I'm just like hanging out. I'll let you know what I want. Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty cool. One of the waitresses like, what the hell I'm doing? But it's all good. No, it's a cool little place. It's been around for like 25 years, I believe. And the first time it came here was in '96. And it was Fort Lauderdale Riverwalk Blues Festival, which was really cool. So they had this. I was working the poorhouse stage, and it was right next to the Downtowner. And I decided to check it out. And I liked the vibe. Came around here on and off, and I'm back again. Good folks, good food, good service. All human, so please show some courtesy. This is not a Walmart. However, I love the vibe. Bring your kids too. Even on Sunday, they're going to have Mother's Day on the 12th. $21, all you can eat. I would check it out. Alright, so lots of interesting stuff is happening today, or during the week. Of course, Julian Assange. It's interesting what they say about, 3-1, people believe, they want to see him, the American people want to see him prosecuted. Well, you never talk to me, and one, I'm not an Uncle Tom or a bend over Bob to the establishment. Alright, so when I hear that, I'm not buying it. And of course, the whole thing was going on with him spending 50 weeks in a UK jail for bail skipping. What a double standard is that? In the heart of the House of Lords, common law don't exist in Britain. They're trying to take all of our rights away. But you know what? Got y'all giving the big middle finger to these parasites out there. And of course, the one officer, Noor, from Minnesota, was convicted of manslaughter and attempted second-degree murder. Well, another conviction of a officer that chose poorly. And everyone's like, may not like it. However, everything starts in due time. Now with technology and all that, and the information war, things are shifting. So it's exciting on that aspect, and it's a shame for the victims' heirs. So I'm going to talk about the whole thing with Julian Assange right now. And this came in from the Mind Unleashed. They shared their stuff on activist posts as well. Assange sentenced to 50 weeks in UK prison for bogus bail charge. And it's from Caitlin Johnstone. And she's good. I like her content. Very, balls to the wall, I would say. Not these, like, not a bunch of, she doesn't have that speaker mindset. Alright, it says here, following 7 years of imprisonment at the Ecuadorian embassy fighting U.S. extradition, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been sentenced to 50 weeks behind bars for an entirely bogus bail charge. Sky News reporter Jordan Milne live tweeted events as they unfolded, reporting that Assange's defense argued that his fear of rendition and torture at the hands of the U.S. government were well founded. His life in the Ecuadorian embassy and the physical and psychological detriments which came with it were described, including deteriorated health and depression. The judge rejected his entire defense and delivered nearly the harshest sentence possible. Yes, he is King George III in heat from that judge. Hopefully if he hears the show, if he gets offended, I don't give a damn. Your concomitant residence in the embassy has necessitated a concentration of resources and the expenditures of 16 million pounds of taxpayers' money in ensuring that when you did leave, you were brought to justice. Judge Deborah Taylor told Assange upon his sentencing. It sounds like Judge Deborah Taylor is the scum queen to the New World Order, allegedly speaking. And this is what this is what Johnson has to say. This is bullshit. I didn't say it, she did. Assange's residency at the embassy never cost taxpayers a penny. It was British government's decision to pour money into patrolling the embassy around the clock with police who had orders to arrest Assange on sight over a petty bail charge. It was the British government's decision to persuade the Swedish government not to drop its investigation in 2013 so that it could pursue the agenda to arrest Assange for U.S. extradition. Assange's residency didn't cost British taxpayers anything. The agenda to imprisonment and extradite a journalist for publishing facts is what cost taxpayers 16 million pounds. There is one reason and only one reason only that the British government saw fit to spend 16 million pounds of taxpayers' money patrolling that embassy, and it wasn't because they really, really hate bail violations. Absolutely. Because they will spread their butt cheeks to the deep state. That's what these people are. Uncle Toms and Angel Mamas to the one world order. And I say that out of fidelity. One and only reason the UK government found it reasonable to invest 16 million pounds in control of the Ecuadorian embassy is because it had an agenda to help the US war machine punish someone who embarrassed it. And now the cost of that UK government agenda is being used to justify nearly behind bars after years of arbitrary decision. And then they said here on the WikiLeaks tweet, that morning, Julian Assange's sentence for seeking and receiving asylum is twice as much as the sentencing guidelines. The so-called speedboat killer convicted of manslaughter was only sentenced to 6 months for failing to appear in court. Yay! Exceptional! We will give him less, but you'll get more. Exceptional. Exactly how flamboyant is that? Very Orwellian indeed. Julian Assange's sentence for seeking and receiving asylum is twice as much as the sentencing guidelines. And I said that in there already. I will skip that. The bail charge itself is entirely illegitimate, as scholars and WikiLeaks advocate Simon Floth explains. Under British law, bail is only legally breached if there's a failure to meet bail without reasonable cause, which is a human right to seek asylum certainly is. The UK itself was clearly unconvinced of its own authority to charge someone who was under political asylum for jumping bail, waiting a full 9 days before issuing a warrant in 2012. After the Swedish government decided to drop the sexual assault investigation in 2017 without issuing any charges, Assange's legal team attempted last year to get the warrant dropped. The judge in that case, Emma Arbuthnot, just happened to be married to former Tory Junior Defence Minister and Government Whip James Arbuthnot, who served as Director of Security Intelligence Consultancy SC Strategy Limited with the former head of MI6. Arbuthnot denied Assange's request with extreme vitriol, despite his argument that the British law does have provisions which allow for the time he already served under the house arrest to count toward far more than would be served for violating bail. And of course, right here, there is the same thing here about WikiLeaks said Julian Assange's sentence is as shocking as it's vindictive. We have grave concerns to whether he will receive a fair extradition hearing in the UK. And it is interesting indeed. I'm just wondering, it's funny about the whole charges against Assange. Came out around March of 2018. And who was Attorney General at the time? Jeff Sessions, the Keebler man for the Attorney General, which he really sucked at that position, including the Senate in Alabama. I will continue on here. All the course planes in comparison far more grave than that Assange is facing tomorrow when his hearing for U.S. extradition begins. The U.S. charge accompanying Assange's extradition request is even more bogus than the bail charge. A reinterpretation of standard journalistic practices like source protection to create charge, which Obama administration declined to prosecute based on the same evidence, fear of endangering press freedoms. Assange is charged with conspiring to help Chelsea Manning to avoid detection while leaking evidence of U.S. war crimes and malfeasance. Malfeasance, yeah, which is something any investigative journalist who publishes leaks would do. The charge is a bunch of words designed to twist standard journalistic practices just into just enough of a crime to get Assange onto U.S. soil for non-political reasons. As Pentagon Papers lawyer John Goodale explains, under the U.S.-UK extradition treaty, one cannot be extradited from the UK if the extradition is for political purposes. Once he's on U.S. soil, far more serious charges may be added that are very political in nature indeed. If that happens, Assange will not be spending 5 years behind bars for computer offenses. That is current charge allows. He'll be spending decades. Hopefully all you folks out there, if you become a juror of this particular case, practice jury nullification. That's how you not take out these tyrants in a legalized matter. And so it looks like someone's having a happy birthday. Okay, someone's having a happy birthday. So if you can't hear me in the background, you'll be all right. Don't worry, it'll be fine. I don't think Julian is looking for 5 years in prison. I think he's probably looking at 50 years in prison, said CIA whistleblower John Carrico, adding, I think there are many more charges to be considered for Julian. I would expect a superseding indictment to possibly include espionage charges. There is no simple, and there's a video on that too, so you can read it for yourselves. Listen to it to yourself. Excuse me. There is simply no such thing as a fair national security trial in the Eastern District of Virginia, which is where Assange will be heading if extradited to the U.S. No national security defendant has ever won a case in EDVA. Cargill told RT upon Assange's arrest. In my case, I asked Judge Rakima to declassify 70 documents that I needed to defend myself. She denied all 70 documents. Yeah, they all think they're above the law. All hail to due process, right? Those bunch of prostitutes in there, you know what I'm saying? And so I had literally no defense for myself and was forced to take a plea. That's how these scumbags think. And Judge Rakima is nothing more than a treasonous parasite that makes Benedict Arnold a great patriot. That's right. He cannot get a fair trial, Carrico said on a Unity 4G vigil when Assange was still at the embassy. It's impossible because the deck is stacked. And everybody knows what's going to happen if he comes back to the Eastern District of Virginia. Here's the same advice I gave Edward Snowden: don't come home because you can't get a fair trial here. Julian doesn't have a choice, and that's what frightens me even more. This is why it's imperative for everyone who stands for truth, press freedom, or government accountability to oppose this extradition request tooth and claw. Wherever they're in the world, Australians should be pushing their government to intercede against U.S. extradition. Britain should be doing the same, and America should be pushing their government not to extradite. It is too late to keep Assange from being pried loose from the embassy and imprisoned by the UK. So now we need to put all our energy into keeping Assange out of the clutches of the same government which tortured Chelsea Manning. Go to demonstrations, make phone calls to your local representatives, donate, get posters, spread around Australia, write letters to the editor, and share information about what's going on with your friends and family and anyone you can. We can't rely on the legal system to sort this one out because, as we've seen today, the legal system can be very easily be manipulated to serve the interests of the powerful. And hopefully, individuals such as Ted Deutsch, local Representative Ted Deutsch, Flip-Flop Rick Scott, and Marco Rubio, both U.S. senators from Florida, better get the message pretty damn clear. If you support extradition, if you think Assange got what he deserves, then you're nothing more than oath breakers. Plain and simple. One of the things I always tell folks, the war on the press continues. A lot of beautiful people try to fight what was right. They got murdered for it. I talk about this multiple times on my shows. All you gotta do is look at the archives. But the truth of the matter is it completely unacceptable. It's a sham, a monumental lie. I don't care if you like Julian Assange or not. I'm looking at the bigger picture. If you don't protect his liberties, he can be your enemy. One day that sword, that blade is going to come right down at you and you go, what have I done wrong? You'll be the one who'll be crying wolf the most, like a banshee in heat. And I'm not the only one that's making the statement. I've got another one here pertaining to the matter from Consortium News that came out yesterday. And it's from VIPS, Extradition of Julian Assange that threatens us all. And it's to the people of the UK and the United States. Veterans intelligence professionals for insanity. Like it says here, the retaliation against Julian Assange over the past decade plus replicates a pattern of ruthless political retaliation against whistleblowers, in particular those who reveal truth hidden by legal secrecy. VIPS says. And it says here about extradition of Julian Assange threatening us all. On April 11th, the London police forcibly removed WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange from the embassy of Ecuador after that country's president, Lenin Moreno, who spread his butt cheeks to the IMF, abruptly revoked his predecessor grants of asylum. The United States government immediately requested Assange's extradition for prosecution under the charge of conspiracy to commit computer intrusion under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Former U.S. government officials promptly appeared in popular media offering soothing assurances that Assange's arrest threatens neither constitutional rights nor the practice of journalism, and major newspapers like the New York Times and the Washington Post fell into line. Moo! Follow the herd, just another cow. Not so fast. Others found reason to concern the details of the indictment. Kerry DeSalle, a staff attorney for the Ninth First Amendment Institute, noted that the indictment goes beyond simply stating the computer intrusion charge and includes many more allegations that reach more broadly into typical journalistic practices, including communication with the source, encouraging a source to share information, and protecting the source. In an analysis of an indictment implication, the project of government oversight POGO observed that it includes an allegation that Assange and Manning took measures to conceal Manning as a source of the disclosure, including by removing usernames of the disclosed information and deleting chat logs between Assange and Manning, and that they used special folder on a cloud drop box of WikiLeaks to transmit classified records. They are not only legitimate, but professionally advised journalistic practices for source protection, notes Pogo. It was not worth noting that Manning had a top-secret clearance and did not need Assange's assistance to gain access to database, but only to hide their identity. The indictment's implied threat thus reaches beyond Assange and even beyond journalists. The threat to journalists and others do not vanish if they subsequently avoid practices identified in the government's indictment. The NSA's big bag of past communications offers abundant material from which to spin an indictment years later, and even circumstantial evidence can produce a conviction. Moreover, the secret landscape, a recent arbitrary development, continually expands, making ever more of government off-limits to public view. When politicians and the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo labeled WikiLeaks a non-state hostile intelligence service, he was describing an off-stated duty of newspapers to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. The devil in the big picture. One can only so closely at the indictment detail that one misses the big picture and with the vital truth, standing back for a broader view. A long-running campaign of harassment by U.S. authorities and former officials focused on WikiLeaks' publication of embarrassing secrets become visible. The project on American oversight observes. Even if the motives for Assange's indictment are entirely legitimate, the lenity of high-ranking government officials who call for Assange to be prosecuted for publishing classified documents have likely already irreparably harmed the freedom of the press. It will be virtually impossible to fully disentangle the government's desire to prosecute Assange from his publishing activities from the government's current prosecution of him. And as a result, there will, to some degree, be an unavoidable chilling effect stemming from its prosecution. Standing back still further, a crowd of similar cases comes into view. Other truth tellers subjected to similar prosecution. They are not journalists, but another species of truth teller, a national security whistleblower who have warned for years that this day will come. A pattern of reprisal. Opinions of Julian Assange's character and methods vary widely, but what is relevant to First Amendment freedoms is how the U.S. government perceives him. The big picture reveals that Assange, a publisher of whistleblower disclosures, is viewed the same way as whistleblowers, unwelcoming light shining on official wrongdoing who must be dimmed, deflected, and shut off. When government bodies are doing to Assange, they routinely have done to whistleblowers. Thomas Drake, Jeffrey Sterling, John Carrico, William Binney, Daniel Ellsberg, Chelsea Manning, and others who disclose for public benefit information the government finds politically troublesome. Once the government develops animus towards a truth teller, it fishes indefinitely until it finds some means to retaliate, some pretext to punish that individual, a pattern of retaliation against high-profile national security whistleblowers, including the following tactics. 1. Relentless campaigns of character assassination and misinformation about the facts of the case. 2. Hostile, lengthy government investigations, often for minor, never proven, or circumstantial offenses. 3. Terrorization of the whistleblower and associates with threats, and there's a couple of links you can check out yourself. Solitary confinement, and armed home invasions for non-violent alleged offenses. 4. Pretrial declaration of guilt from influential officials such as Barack Obama's declaration as a military commander-in-chief that Army Private Bradley, now Chelsea Manning, broke the law, potentially influencing the Army court that heard her case. 5. A balkanized judicial process that restricts most such cases on one judicial venue cherry-picked by prosecutors for speedy deference to government. A venue sealed from the public scrutiny and some says justice. 6. Prosecution under the Espionage Act, a vague and doctrine law similar in those respect to the CFAA. 7. Continuing prosecution, isolation, marginalization, blacklisting, and more after the time has been served. There's links for that too, or after charges are dropped. Reportedly, British and U.S. intelligence are interrogating Assange, possibly employing torture tactics without access to legal counsel at a prison reserved for terrorists. U.S. officials apparently charge Assange as a terrorist in order to dodge the problem of the statute of limitations for conspiracy or computer intrusion by extending via the Patriot Act and or other terrorism laws. The normal statute of limitations to 5 to 8 years. Not for insiders. Even if the charges against whistleblowers are later dropped, government still wins because the tactics used damage the truth teller professionally, financially, socially, psychologically, and foreseeably chill other whistleblowers. It's called the fear factor, my friends. Importantly, virtually all of the retaliatory actions described above are carried out or instigated by the elite political establishment, current and former political appointees, and elected officials. Equally important is the fact that tactics used against whistleblowers are rarely, if ever, applied to political insiders who fail to protect classified information. Even actual spies who give or sell secrets directly to foreign governments have fared better than some well-meaning whistleblowers. In contrast to whistleblowers, political insiders who mistreat government secrets are publicly praised by the establishment, face lesser charges, if any, are treated with dignity by investigators, receive presidential pardons, and moved on to prestigious and lucrative positions. Yes, if you're corrupt, they will respect you. If you stand for what's right, they want to censure you. The takeaway: retaliation against Julian Assange over the past decade plus replicates a pattern of ruthless political retaliation against whistleblowers, in particular those who reveal truths hidden by illegal secrecy. U.S. law prohibits classifying information in order to conceal inefficiency, violation of law, or administrative error to prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency. Whether U.S. authorities successfully prosecute Assange, accept a desperate plea deal, or to keep him tied up with endless litigation, they will succeed in sending the same chilling message to all journalists that they send to potential whistleblowers. Do not embarrass us or we'll punish you. Somehow, someday, however long it takes. In that respect, one can say damage to journalism already has been done, but the battle is not over. This extension of a whistleblower reprisal regime onto a publisher of disclosure poses an existential threat to all journalists and to the right of all people to speak and hear important truths. The U.S. indictment of U.S. Julian Assange tests our ability to perceive a direct threat to free speech and test our will to oppose that threat. Without freedom of the press and the right of and willingness to publish, whistleblowers, even disclosing issues of grave life and death public safety, will be like a tree falling in the forest with no one to hear. The great American writer Henry David Thoreau wrote, "It takes two to speak the truth, one to speak and one to hear. Today it takes three to speak the truth, one to speak, one to hear, one to defend, the first two in court. If the U.S. government has its way, there will be no defense, no truth." And of course, there's a list of groups for the steering groups of Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Insanity and Sandman Associates for Integrity in Intelligence. And there's a big list down here. Many great folks, including Ray McGovern. So there's not a bunch of yahoos, my friends. And I have to agree. If people support the arrest, you say it, I hate freedom. I'm a conformist, her conformist. A weak and pathetic fool. I'm less patriotic than Benedict Arnold. That's what you're saying to yourself if you support these arrests. Truth of the matter is, folks, government thinks they're above everybody. Doesn't matter where you're at. But we all have natural born rights. Don't be afraid of these parasites. Yeah, they get a few dents here and there, but doesn't mean you gotta give up. It's very disturbing when you hear all the garbage people buying up, like Fox News and seeing all these people questioning us about Julian Assange. He's innocent till proven guilty, not the other way around. Deserves a fair trial. Now I recommend everyone and contact your representatives and call them out if they're cowards. Because they're nothing without us. They want us to belly up, be a number, go, "Yes, master, may I have another?" I don't buy that. Never have, never will. Hopefully everyone out there feel the same way. That's one you gotta look at. The war on the press continues. It's the war with ourselves. Like the war on terror. Same I said before. Mentioned. Because it's happening to multiple people. Not just the United States, but around the world. So what's your intake on it? You support freedom or you lick the boots of tyranny? Do you support your Bill of Rights culture or belly up to a police state? That's for the people in in this nation. My nation, the United States. Do you support a republic or an empire? If you give up your freedom for temporary security, you don't deserve either. Ben Franklin once said. And government is force. George Washington. So, that is my intake. I say no to extradition of Julian Assange or anyone else fighting to spread the truth. All right, how's it going over here? Oh, cool. So far, so good. All right, next one here came out from the Unleashed by Derek Bros. Coup attempt in Venezuela, what you're not being told. As it reads here, the turbulent situation who has been unfolding in Venezuela for the last few years reached new heights on Tuesday as opposition leader and self-declared interim president Juan Guaido attempted to wrangle power away from Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in what many are calling an attempt coup. Early Tuesday morning, Guaido gave press conference declaring that he has support the Venezuelan people and military and demand that Maduro step down. Guaido also called on Venezuelans to take to the streets and call for an end of Maduro's reign as president. During the day's events, cameras caught armored vehicles reportedly belonging to Bolivian military. Bolivian military running into a crowd of protesters. Human Rights Watch tweeted that 25 people were detained and dozens were wounded. HRW also noted that Venezuelan authorities shut down 2 international television channels and censored 1 radio station. The regime should know it will be held accountable for these abuses, tweeted Jose Miguel Vivanco, Executive Director of HRW's America Division. Meanwhile, Venezuela's UN Ambassador Samuel Moncada held a press conference stating that President Maduro has defeated opposition leader Juan Guaido and his supporters. Monica stated the country is right now in the situation of perfect normality. Moncada criticized UN General Antonio Guterres for not supporting Maduro's government against Guaido. Moncada also attacked the United States for, he said, was another example of their interventionist policies, singling out President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence for their support of Guaido. This is one of the most strange and weird situations we are in now, which the superpower of the world is the main rogue state going around without care, destroying countries, invading countries, and threatening with use of force, Moncada stated. The ambassador of the UN also noted that the United States' use of the sanction amounts to an act of war and only hurts the Venezuelan people. Sanctions killed as simple as that. Sanctions are criminal sanctions, are weapons of mass destruction. You don't see the smoke, but you see the effect. You see the deleterious effect of killing and suffering, Moncada said. The sanctions use bank sanctions. Sanctions use ships. Sanctions use insurance companies and financial blockades. They cannot just say they are concerned about liberty or freedom or the children of Venezuela. And then exercise a ghastly, nasty policy of calculated cruelty. They are not acting like torturers is a collective punishment. Indeed, the Washington, D.C. based Center for Economic Policy researcher published a report last week which determined the U.S. sanctions against Venezuela were likely responsible for 40,000 deaths in 2011 to 2018. The harsh reality is that Maduro is by no means a perfect leader, and his support for censoring media and use the military to suppress protests, whether engineered or authentic. His suppression of the opposition and other despicable acts do need to be called out. However, Ambassador Makata is also correct that the United States does act as an imperialist rogue nation, using force of any nation that does not follow the Western imperialist agenda. Unfortunately, it seems that the Venezuelan people are caught between a leader who is unpopular in some circles and even more unpopular self-proclaimed interim president with multiple connections to the Western Empire. Of course, if our readers are unaware of these connections, it is because the corporate media, CNN, Washington Post, The Hill, and others have been running non-stop coverage of Guaidó should be accepted as a leader of Venezuela while ignoring any bit of evidence that the uprising may be less than genuine. Despite the round-the-clock support of Guaidó, on April 13th, the Gray Zone exclusively reported that who's who of Trump advisor, right-wing Latin officials, and Venezuelan opposition figures met to discuss the assessing use of military force in Venezuela. The meeting was hosted on April 10th at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a Washington-based think tank. This meeting included current and former State Department, National Intelligence Council, and National Security Council officials, along with Admiral Kirk Tidd, who was recently the commander of the U.S. Naval Force Southern Command, overseeing operations in Central and South America. God bless the empire, right? The truth is that Western Empire has been attempting to use Guaidó to install a puppet government in Venezuela. And there is also evidence that the U.S. government and its intelligence agencies have attempted to take advantage of electricity blackouts in order to dethrone Maduro. In addition, there are a new number of corporations and special interests who stand benefit from the overthrow of Maduro and the crowning of Guaidó. Although the American media has failed to report any of the above conflicts, there are still some Americans who still stand against Venezuela coup. A group calling itself Embassy Protection Collective was invited by Venezuela's government to protect the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, D.C. from illegal seizure by the U.S. government or opposition supporters. The group, which includes members of Co-Pink, Popular Resistance, and the Answer Coalition, Mint News Press, and more, has been working to raise awareness on the attempts by U.S. Western oligarchy to install another puppet government in Venezuela. There's a video for that in there too, you should check it out yourselves. The reality of the situation in Venezuela is much more complicated than the likes of CNN would have the American people believe. Only by dissecting the lies in the American media, the Maduro government and the Guaidó contingent can we hope to get the truth and support the people who really matter, the Venezuelan people. And I have to agree with Derek Rose on this, because the truth of the matter is I'm not a friend of government in general. And I know too Venezuela is a police state because the government there has property of the firearms. That's Article 324 of their own constitution. You guys can read it yourselves. Why have this U.S. military intervention? If the people in Venezuela are smart, which I know a lot of them are, don't get me wrong, I was wondering if they ever do things on secession, secede from the Venezuelan government, especially the ones that are rich with oil. That would drive Maduro crazy. Guarantee you that. Sometimes you gotta take these steps. It's a big risk, but stand for your rights instead of stand to die free or live on your knees. And I agree, the United States government should not get involved. Hey, if people want to support going to war in Venezuela, go on the front line and see how tough you are. That including flip-flopper Rick Scott and Marco Glamboy Rubio. Put Pompeo in there too. Good grief. It drives me crazy because sometimes you have the imperialism and people still buy it. Buy the store. Oh yeah, you know. And I'll talk about the stuff in Venezuela in the past, because I'm not crazy about their government, but you got sanctions and you got the central banking. They were hijacked since 1939, which the central banks did in the United States in 1913. People in Venezuela gotta follow their hearts and souls. Be organic in your movements. Don't rely on these think tanks, provocateurs, and plants. Want true victory in Venezuela. Keep it real. Don't fall for the hype, the hoopla. Yeah, people may get injured, people may die. But like I said, you gotta die free, or you want to live like a slave. That's your choice. There's all the beautiful people down there and everywhere else. A little rebellion now and then is good, Thomas Jefferson once said. Alright, gotta do one more here, my friends. And I'm not getting any intervening. So I think it's really good. You hear a lot of background. So that's okay. This one came from Law of Self-Defense. Former Minnesota officer Nora convicted of murdering Justine Damond. And good, and you'll watch the video, but it's pretty cool here. It says, when reasonableness fails, Minnesota cop who killed Justine Damond convicted. As it reads here, it's by attorney Andrew Branca. It says here, hi folks, the case of the week covers Somali refugee Mohammed Noor, who, while a Minneapolis police officer, shot and killed Justine Damond. Noor had been convicted of third-degree murder and third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter for that killing, reports Minnesota Tribune. Noor was acquitted of more serious charges of second-degree murder. The facts of the case are relatively undisputed. On July 15, 2017, Ms. Damond called 911 to report a possible rape taking place in the alley behind her home. And Officer Noor, along with his partner Matthew Harity, driving a patrol car, rode through the alley to investigate. Ms. Damond was approaching the patrol car to talk with the officers when she spotted by Noor, who was a passenger in the seat of the patrol car. Noor immediately drew his service pistol and fired a round across in the front of his partner through the driver's side window and shot Damond fatally in the abdomen. While the facts are relatively undisputed, their proper interpretation was not. As we report this week in the Star Tribune, prosecutors argued at trial that Noor violated his training in national police standards when he shot Damond instead of identifying her and addressed her verbally. The defense attorney said Noor relied on common police training to eliminate a threat when she appeared next to the squad car in the middle of the night and raised her arm in a fashion that he interpreted as an ambush. Much of the prosecution's case focused on apparent efforts by Minnesota Police Department and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to cover up the incriminating evidence in the case. Again, to quote the Star Tribune reported, the prosecution sprawling the case against Noor raised alarming questions about Minneapolis police conduct and the BCA. Assistant prosecutors crafted a picture of the police secrecy from the shooting's immediate aftermath to trial, showing that several officers have turned off their cameras at the scene, accusing a key supervisor of inventing the story that Noor and Harity heard a loud noise on their squad car before the shooting, and calling out dozens of officers for refusing to speak with investigators until compelled by a grand jury. Ain't that nice? Unhelpful to the defense was Noor's checkered record as a police officer. As we noted in our blog post on December 2nd, 2018, Murder 2 charge against ex-cop Mohammed Noor. Noor was at best a troubled officer. In the 2 years as a police officer, Noor had 3 former complaints against him, 2 of which as of September 2017 are pending resolution. In a separate case from May 2017, he is being sued for allegedly assaulting a woman. Following the dead shooting, Star Tribune reported Noor's training has been fast-tracked by suburban police departments to see the cadet programs as a way to add diversity to their police forces. Noor's police training had been part of the cadet program for the Minneapolis Police Department, an accelerated 7-month program aimed at candidates who already have a college degree and wish to enter law enforcement. In September 2018, it was revealed that in 2015, 2 psychiatrists and other training officers had raised questions about Noor's fitness for police duty. In terms of self-defense law, the key element successfully targeted here by the prosecution was that of objective reasonableness. That is, if one takes Noor's at his word and accepts his subjectively perceived Damond as an imminent deadly force threat, was that belief objectively reasonable? would a reasonable and prudent person under the same similar circumstances have shared their subjective perception? A mere bare fear, an unreasonable or irrational subjective fear, is not sufficient to justify use of force. That subject of fear, however, much held in a genuine good faith, must also be objectively reasonable, and objective reasonableness is evaluated by applying court powers of reason to the actual evidence available to the defense, and at the time the use of force was the evidence that is such that a reasonable and prudent person in the same circumstance would infer the presence of imminent deadly force threat. If so, then Noor's shooting of Damond could have been said have fallen into the category of awful but lawful self-defense shooting. But may well be an actual threat did not exist, but the law does not require an actual threat. Reasonably perceived the threat is enough. We are not required to make perfect decisions in self-defense. We're merely required to make reasonable decisions in self-defense. Reasonable decisions, even if mistaken, are sufficient to justify use of defensive force, and deadly defense force, assuming the other requirement elements of that self-defense claim are also present. Jury in Noor's trial obviously declined to accept that Noor's perception of Damond as presenting him an imminent deadly force was an objectively reasonable perception, and they convicted him accordingly. I would hope that none of us will likely be carrying Noor's type of baggage into any defense use of force in which we might be compelled to participate. That doesn't mean that the rules apply to evaluate the lawfulness or not, or the use of force will be any different than those applied to Noor. It's the same rules for everybody. Your defense force must be objectively reasonable, or your claim of self-defense justification for that use of force will fail. And given that self-defense requires at least implicit concessions that it was you who committed the underlying act, the failure of self-defense is generally a walk-away conviction for the prosecution. Remember, you carry a gun, so you're hard to kill. Know the law, so you're hard to convict. That's Attorney Andrew F. Branca, Law Self-Defense, LLC. And P.S., I hope you enjoy this kind of self-defense content. I encourage you to visit the Law of Self-Defense blog. We always have similar content available free, usually daily. So, folks, actually, it's a good art. This guy is really good. I like to hit his websites a lot. And I recommend everyone I'll go out there, even though if you're not familiar with self-defense, firearms rights, so forth. It's good to know this, learn about individuals like him, because he's fantastic. He's consistent. So that's all I can say about this man. But see what Noor proved, he chose poorly. Like what happened to former Officer Raja in Palm Beach Gardens did the same thing. He tried to stand your ground. The guy's running away. That's null and void. That's a big insult to my intelligence. It's a shame because now he has a beautiful wife and he has a family. He's got to be separated now. So what happened here with Noor, they say he was a Somalian refugee supposedly, but it doesn't matter. You got to take responsibility for your actions. No one's above the law. I'm not going to go around police bashing either because it's completely irrelevant. They have their rogue elements in there as well, like everywhere else. Body cameras are great, but they weren't implemented in this case. That's why I encourage everyone else to have cameras. Fight back. Don't be afraid of these people. I don't care what skin color you have. Action conquers fear. And I'll tell you one thing about Officer Noor. He's going to have a problem in the prison system. Mark my words. I know he may have a lot of enemies in there. The case may have blew back at him. You don't take things for granted, regardless who you are. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you said something interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please feel free to share your correspondence with decorum. In addition, I will leave all my social media site contacts and email addresses on my Spreaker page. All right, my friends, Once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that the demoniac resistance, something for the soul, can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.